Hey now! What is up, everybody? My name is Mike Brown, aka Review King MB, and this is not my 31 days of horror movie reviews. No, that's long and done. But I did watch a horror film from this year that I either forgot it was coming out or came across it and said, oh yeah, I remember that movie being a thing. I'm talking about Salem's Lot. I wanted him to jump in, cannonball, or just dive. Yeah, that other thing was like, wee. This is the 2024 version because I know there was like a mini series. There was something else in like 2005, but I didn't watch any of that. And I also never read the same book with the same name by Stephen King. And so it's one of those things where I've heard about this, mostly that it was Stephen King, but other than that, I didn't know what it was about. I didn't know the premise. I went into this movie completely blind. And I mostly went into it blind because when I first heard about this movie being made, it was supposed to be in theaters, then it got delayed, and then it was pushed and pushed and pushed until finally they just released it, I think, on Max. Just kind of without fanfare, without really anybody talking about it. So I watched it for myself, and I didn't hate this movie, but I certainly didn't love it either. It's not nearly going to be on my worst of list, and it's not going to be on my best of list, even with the horror category. It's just one of those films that I feel like it had a cool premise, it had some interesting characters, it had some interesting stuff going on, but ultimately it felt rushed. Ultimately it felt like there was so much going on and not enough time and care spent into spending time with these characters so that I could give a shit when bad things started to happen, that it just, I think it ultimately fails to hit the mark. Now, if you don't know about this premise in the same way that I did, it is revolving around this writer, Ben Mears, who comes into Salem and he's looking for inspiration. He grew up in this town, but he's a writer, so he's coming back to look for ideas, look for something to write about in his next book. And as he's doing that, a vampire is in town. I guess a vampire has been sort of staying dormant in this town and sort of feeding on people whenever he kind of wants to. And it's this whole big secret. And I guess it's the survivors of the town trying to survive the vampire's onslaught. Now, I was not expecting a vampire at all. Once again, I knew nothing about it other than like the name. But I had no idea what the actual evil thing would be. And so when I saw the vampire, I kind of said, holy shit. Because I love vampire stuff. I do. I love good vampire stuff. And so I was somewhat pleasantly surprised by this. And I wanted to see how they handled it because modern vampire stories aren't always handled with the greatest care. I did appreciate some of the more traditional aspects of vampire stuff being put in this. Obviously, it's based on, I believe the book was 1975, so like, yeah, it's going to be some old shit, but it sort of made me appreciate the whole vampire rules and the lore, even just as far as them having to asking for permission in order to come into your house. And also them hypnotizing you. That's something that I don't think gets talked about enough. The writer, Ben, is played by Lewis Pullman, who is Bill Pullman's son. And I haven't seen him, Lewis Pullman, I haven't seen him in anything else. I know that he's going to be in the upcoming Thunderbolts Marvel movie. This film, I was not impressed or blown away by him. Granted, maybe it's more the writing, maybe it's more of just him not really having the opportunity to show some personality or show anything that makes him likable, relatable, or just anything. He literally feels like just a random regular dude, other than the fact that he's a writer. But nobody really recognizes him as a writer, so he doesn't feel special in that way either. He just feels like a guy, a typical generic white guy that's just in the middle of this and has the main character plot armor. Mackenzie Lee plays Susan. She's the town girl that everybody likes, but she gets more of an interest in Ben, so of course that creates conflict with Ben and the other guys in the town. This should have been played up more, or maybe the story should have focused primarily on these two characters and left out the side characters, even though I like some things about the side characters. Because there's so many side characters, there's too much going around. There's not enough time spent on just one set of characters for me to fully feel invested and feel like I was a part of this story before bad shit goes down. I like this actress that plays Susan. I swear, between her short like haircut, I thought I was gonna look her up and see, because she also looked familiar in the face. I thought I was gonna look her up and see that she was in some horror movie like as a kid, and maybe it's her grown up. She gave a vibe of being from one of the Conjuring films. I don't know, but when I looked her up, no, I haven't really seen anything that she was in other than Gotham. I guess she was in the first season of Gotham. So there you go. The other cast members, you have William Sadler, who honestly is just here. I think he's the sheriff, but he just doesn't do anything. Matt Camp plays Mr. Burke. I actually liked him for what little he had, and for as much as he was in the movie, I liked him. I liked the character, but once again, got short-shrifted kind of by the end. Spencer Treat Clark, who is one of those child actors that's now grown up, so it always trips me out to see him grown up. Alfre Woodard, who is probably the best actor in this movie, not just because of how long she's been acting, but because she treated this with the amount of energy and the amount of emotion that I feel was warranted. The fact that she was initially like, vampires, that's fucking crazy. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. Believable. And then when she starts to see things with her own eyes, she kind of has the, holy fuck, we gotta get the fuck out of here. Like, she's the most relatable character, and they definitely, absolutely did not take advantage of this actress being in this movie. Jordan Preston Carter, I want to mention him because there is a small group of kid characters, child characters, that they spend very little time with. There's this one scene of him in particular getting bullied by the kids because he's the new kid. And he has this friend who protected him. And the friend who protected him ends up turning into a vampire early. So he has this whole thing of like, oh, well, because you are my friend, I want to kill you so you don't have to be a vampire anymore. And like, there's something to that. It's just not spent enough time with. That's my biggest complaint, is that I feel like, now I didn't watch the miniseries, the old one, but I feel like if you're going to remake this or redo this, this should have been a miniseries. This should have been a TV show, or at the very least, a series on Max, 6 to 8 episodes. We could have had more time to spend with the characters. Each episode can deal with the various different characters going on. When certain characters got killed off, we would have actually cared more, as opposed to the movie. It feels very rushed. Even though it's 2 hours, it feels very rushed. There is one scene in particular that I thought was cool, when most of the town starts to turn and they're all on the rooftops watching, and the main characters are in the church looking for safety, and the vampires can't go in there. I thought there was some cool stuff there. There was some cool action, especially towards the end at the drive-in, and the sun's going down, and so all the vampires are like in the trunks of their car, and as the sun's going down, the trunks are starting to open up. There was some cool stuff in here. There was some decent stuff in here. I mentioned Jordan Preston Carter, the kid actor, who I liked, and his friend I mentioned, who turns into a vampire. That friend actor looked so familiar. This whole movie, I'm sitting there going like, I swear all of you motherfuckers look familiar. And I looked him up, and I couldn't see a movie that he was in, a movie or a show that I had seen before. Nothing. And I'm like, that's wild. I usually find something. If I think somebody looks familiar, I always find something where I'm like, oh, that's where I know them from. And then I started to do some more Googling, and I realized this kid is the twin brother of the actor that plays Ryan on The Boys. Homelander's son. If you don't watch The Boys, you don't know who I'm talking about. But I'm like, holy fuck, they look identical. Like, no wonder why I thought I recognized him or I thought I knew who he was. Anyways, that has nothing to do with the movie. I think the movie's fine. It was a decent time waster. There's not a lot of bad things going on here. I think some of the horror is good, some of the vampire stuff is good, but I just think the characters are lacking. The writing isn't the greatest, or what little could have been great. There's not enough time to fully flesh everything out. So ultimately, I'm gonna give it a Netflix and chill.
Oh yeah.
Streaming, I understand now why they put it on streaming. The correct answer would have been to make it a TV show from the beginning. I think that would have gone a long way. Let me know in the comments below if you've seen Salem's Lot, the remake, the 2024 version. What do you think of it? Do you like it? Have you read the book? Have you seen the original? What's better? Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Later.